Badle Ki Aag, The Ash and the Inheritance, extended version. The night air over the Devraj estate felt thick, choked with the heavy scent of burning wood and dry sugarcane. 17-year-old Kabir stood paralyzed amidst the towering stalks of the fields, the intense heat radiating against his face. Tears tracks cut through the soot on his cheeks as he watched the 100-year-old family mansion consumed by an unstoppable wall of roaring fire. Inside that burning furnace were his parents, his father, Devraj, an honorable magistrate who had dedicated his life to protecting the valley, and his mother, who had tried to shield him until the very last second. Near the grand iron gates framed against the inferno stood Thakur Vikram Singh. He held a flickering kerosene torch in his hand, his eyes completely devoid of mercy. 4 months, Vikram, the ruthless coal mining tycoon of the region, had pressured, threatened, and tried to bribe Devraj into signing over the surrounding village lands to seize the valley's water supply for his illegal coal washeries. But Devraj had refused to bow. Tonight, Vikram had decided to silence the magistrate forever. Standing right beside Vikram was his 19-year-old son Ranveer. Dressed in expensive clothes, Ranveer watched the structural beams buckle and snap, letting out a cruel, mocking laugh as the grand roof collapsed inward, sending a shower of golden sparks toward the dark sky. Kabir, screaming through choked tears, "Father! Mother!" Before Kabir could throw himself toward the flames, a heavy, calloused hand clamped tightly over his mouth. It was Raghu, his father's old driver, his eyes filled with terrified tears. Raghu hauled the struggling teenager back into the dense, pitch-black shadows of the forest. Raghu, whispering frantically, voice trembling, "Keep quiet, Kabir. If they hear you, your father's sacrifice means nothing. We have to live, you have to survive." Kabir fought against Raghu's grip until his strength completely gave out, his muffled sobs lost in the roaring crackle of the blaze. By the time the flames slowly died down into a heap of glowing, gray cinders, the morning sun was just beginning to streak the sky with blood-red light. Raghu loosened his grip. Kabir fell forward onto his knees in the damp dirt, staring at the smoldering ruins of his life. His chest felt hollow, his heart ripped open by an agonizing combination of grief and raw, unadulterated hatred. Slowly, Kabir reached out his hand, plunging his fingers into the warm, scorched ash at the edge of the perimeter. He squeezed his fist tightly, feeling the rough texture cut into his palm. Kabir, voice cold, raspy, and stripped of all innocence. "I won't just kill them, Raghu. A quick death is a mercy they don't deserve. I will take their wealth, their name, and their power. I will burn Vikram and Ranveer's empire to the ground, until nothing is left of them but ash." He stood up slowly, wiping the soot across his forehead like a vow. The innocent magistrate's son died in that field that night. In his place, a monster of vengeance was born. Forged in shadow, extended version. 15 years passed in a blur of blood, discipline, and calculated obsession. Kabir had vanished from the northern valleys, his name erased from land records and police ledgers as if he had died alongside his parents in the fire. In reality, Raghu had smuggled the young boy into the dark, lawless underbelly of Mumbai's shipping docks. There, under the mentorship of reclusive underground financiers and brutal combat trainers, Kabir transformed himself. He pushed his body to its absolute limits, learning to endure physical pain without flinching and mastering lethal hand-to-hand combat. But Kabir knew muscle alone couldn't destroy a billionaire. During the day, he immersed himself in corporate law, international banking, forensic accounting, and high-stakes market manipulation. He studied Vikram Singh's financial ecosystem like a predator studying its prey. By 32, Kabir emerged into the sunlight with a new identity, Karan Raichand. He was smooth, soft-spoken, and immaculately tailored, a feared venture capitalist known in elite financial circles as the turnaround king. Karan operated through a web of anonymous shell companies based out of Dubai and Singapore. His specialty was buying out failing, debt-ridden industrial giants, systematically dismantling their corrupt boards, and liquidating their founders. Behind his calm, charismatic smile lay a mind cold as liquid nitrogen. Meanwhile, back in the valley, Thakur Vikram Singh had built Singh coal and power into a multi-billion-dollar energy empire. But fate was already catching up with him. Vikram was now a fragile, bedridden old man, tied to oxygen concentrators in his heavily guarded, fortress-like estate. Power had shifted to his son Ranveer. Grown into an arrogant, volatile CEO, Ranveer spent his days burning through millions on illegal underground gambling, offshore racing teams, and reckless corporate expansion. Ranveer believed he was untouchable. To fund his lavish lifestyle and cover massive hidden losses, he had quietly leveraged Singh's core assets with predatory European lenders. In his high-rise Mumbai penthouse, Karan stood before a massive glass wall overlooking the city skyline, holding a glass of scotch he didn't drink. On the table behind him lay a detailed dossier on Ranveer's hidden debts. Raghu, stepping into the room, now aged with gray hair. Ranveer just lost another $12 million in a private casino in Dubai. His board has no idea he's embezzling company reserves to cover his debts. Karan, turning slowly, eyes cold and sharp. The foolish son is destroying what the wicked father built. Vikram built a fortress of stolen wealth, Raghu, but Ranveer just opened the front gates for us. It's time I go to Dubai and offer him a lifeline. Raghu, voice low. Are you ready to face him after 15 years? Karan, a dark, razor-thin smile touching his lips. I've been ready since the night I held my father's ash in my hands. Ranveer thinks he's looking for money. He has no idea he's about to sign his own death warrant. The Trojan Horse, extended version. The velvet-lined private casino suite on the 40th floor of a luxury Dubai skyscraper reeked of expensive cigars, spilled champagne, and desperate sweat. High-stakes dealers moved silently around the green felt poker table. Ranveer Singh sat in the center, his silk shirt unbuttoned at the collar, his eyes bloodshot with rage. In front of him, his stack of chips had completely vanished. He had just lost $20 million in a single high-stakes hand to a syndicate of Gulf investors. Ranveer slammed his palm against the mahogany table, making the crystal glasses rattle. Ranveer, slurring, voice thick with panic and pride. Line me another $10 million. You know who I am. I am Ranveer Singh. Singh Coal and Power. My father owns half the valley back home. Casino manager. Stepping forward smoothly with two tall security guards. Your personal credit line is exhausted for the night, Mr. Singh. And your corporate backing accounts failed authorization 10 minutes ago. We need settling tonight. Sweat beaded on Ranveer's forehead. If his bedridden father or the board of directors found out he had pledged Singh's primary shipping guarantees for a gambling debt, he would be stripped of his executive power by morning. Just as security moved to escort a panicking Ranveer into a back office, a calm, deep voice cut through the tension of the room. Karan, stepping out from the VIP lounge, tailored suit immaculate. Let the gentleman play. Cover his debt under my account. The casino manager bowed instantly upon recognizing the man. Karan walked over to the table, pulling a sleek gold pen from his inner jacket pocket and casually signing a transfer voucher for $20 million without looking twice at the amount. Ranveer stared at him, gasping for breath, completely stunned by the unexpected miracle. He looked Karan up and down, the expensive watch, the relaxed posture of supreme power, the cold, unreadable dark eyes. Ranveer, wiping sweat from his neck, laughing nervously. My God, brother, you just saved my life. Who are you? Karan, extending a gloved hand with a smooth, charismatic smile. Karan Raichand, Managing Director of Raichand Global Capital. I've been following your expansion plans in the energy sector, Mr. Singh. It would be a tragedy if a temporary lapse in luck ruined a man of your vision. Ranveer, grabbing Karan's hand, completely hooked. Raichand, the turnaround king. I've read about you in Forbes. Look, I'll pay you back double by next week. I swear on my family's name. Karan, placing a reassuring hand on Ranveer's shoulder. Forget the double. Money is boring, Ranveer. I prefer partnerships. Let's sit down, order a drink, and talk about how we can make you the undisputed king of Singhol. Over the next 3 months, Karan systematically pulled the strings of his trap. He played the role of Ranveer's ultimate mentor and benefactor. He quietly cleared Ranveer's gambling debts, funneled offshore capital into his private accounts, and validated Ranveer's wildest, most reckless corporate gambles. He made Ranveer feel invincible, constantly praising his genius while subtly nudging him to take out massive high-risk loans against Singh's core power plants. To Ranveer, Karan Raichand was the best thing that had ever happened to him. One evening, Ranveer invited Karan to the Singh estate back in the valley for an exclusive dinner to finalize a massive joint venture. As Karan's black-armored SUV rolled through the grand iron gates of the estate, Karan looked out the tinted window. He saw the manicured lawns, the armed guards, and the sprawling mansion built over the blood of the valley. Sitting across from Ranveer at the massive marble dining table later that night, Karan took a slow sip of water. Across the hall, in a darkened room hooked to rhythmic medical monitors, lay the coughing, frail body of Thakur Vikram Singh, a shadow of the monster who had held the torch 15 years ago. Ranveer, raising his wine glass, completely intoxicated by power. To our merger, Karan. Together, we're going to buy out the entire northern grid. My old man spent 40 years building this company, but you and I, we're going to rule the country. Karan, raising his glass, his eyes dark as midnight. To the merger, Ranveer. May it bring everything your family truly deserves. Ranveer drank deeply, utterly blind to the fact that the man sitting across from his table was the boy whose life he had burned to ashes, and that the countdown to his utter destruction had officially begun.
Whispers in the Dark's extended version. In the weeks following his arrival at the Singh estate, Karan began operating like a ghost inside the machine. While pretending to evaluate Singh Coal's logistics networks, he spent his late nights accessing their encrypted servers, slowly unearthing decades of hidden crimes, forged land deeds, and systematic bribes that kept Vikram and Ranveer above the law. However, Karan wasn't the only one hunting the Singh family. Ananya, a fiercely independent investigative journalist, whose own family had lost their farm to Vikram's thugs years ago, had been quietly building a case against Singh Coal. She had tracked the company's illegal dumping of toxic coal waste into the valley's primary drinking water supply. A cover-up that had poisoned dozens of village children, believing Karan Raichand was just another greedy, corrupt billionaire coming to bail out Ranveer's failing empire. Ananya cornered Karan late one evening in the estate's grand library. She locked the heavy oak doors behind her and threw a thick folder of graphic photographs onto the glass table in front of him. Ananya, voice trembling with suppressed rage, "Take a good look at those, Mr. Raichand. Those are the children of the valley. Their water is poisoned because Singh Coal skips waste treatment to save a few $1 million. You wrap yourself in three-piece Italian suits and talk about portfolio growth, but you're funding a monster." Karan didn't flinch. He slowly picked up the photographs, his eyes lingering on the suffering of the villagers. Underneath his calm, polished exterior, his blood burned like molten lead. Karan's voice low, steady, and dangerously quiet. "You think a few news articles and bad press will stop men like Vikram and Ranveer, Ananya? Monsters like them don't fall because someone writes a story about them. They fall when you pull out the foundation they stand on. When you take their money, their freedom, and their sanity." Ananya, staring at him, confused by the cold steel in his tone. "Who are you really? You don't talk like an investor. You look at Ranveer like you want to tear him apart." Karan, closing the folder and sliding it back to her, "Keep investigating, Ananya. Gather every proof, every name, every illegal account. When the time comes, publish everything and don't hold back. I will make sure the doors are wide open for you." Ananya realized there was something far deeper and far more dangerous driving the mysterious venture capitalist. Without revealing his true identity as Kabir, Karan secretly created an encrypted channel, anonymously leaking top-secret internal audit files, shell company bank accounts, and safety violation logs from Singh Coal's mainframe directly to Ananya's secure laptop. He was giving her the lethal ammunition she needed to bring federal regulators and national media straight to the Singh family's doorstep. As Karan stood on the balcony late that night, watching the dark outline of the valley, he felt the net tightening. He had the financial trap set for Ranveer, and now he had the legal trap set for Vikram. The fire that had once consumed his life was finally ready to consume theirs. The Trap Springs extended version, with Ananya's investigative team putting the final touches on her media expose, Karan decided it was time to drop the guillotine. Sitting in a private briefing room in a high-rise London hotel, Karan laid out the final blueprinted trap for Ranveer. He proposed a historic, once-in-a-lifetime joint acquisition. Singh Coal would partner with Raichand Global to buy out a massive offshore European green energy syndicate. Karan assured Ranveer that this single move would double the valuation of Singh Coal, silence his internal board critics, and make Ranveer an international icon. There was only one catch. The seller required an immediate, unbacked cash deposit of $80 million within a 48-hour window. Ranveer's pacing nervously in his private office. Voice strained over the phone, $80 million in cash. Karan, that's almost our entire emergency reserve. If I liquidate those reserves without board approval, it's a massive breach of fiduciary duty. If something goes wrong, Karan, voice soothing, calculated, and dripping with false confidence. Ranveer. Visionaries don't ask permission from panicked board members. I'm putting up $120 million of my own money. If you hesitate now, the Singapore group will jump in and take the deal by tomorrow morning. Do you want to remain in your father's shadow forever, or do you want to own the future? Driven by his insatiable ego, desperate to prove his dominance and trusting Karan blindly, Ranveer caved. Late that night, using forged board signatures and secret authorization codes, Ranveer authorized the wire transfer of $80 million out of Singapore primary treasury into an offshore escrow account in the Cayman Islands. He had no idea that the Green Energy Syndicate was a ghost entity, and the Cayman escrow account belonged entirely to Kabir. The moment the transaction was confirmed, Karan didn't waste a second. He triggered a ruthless, pre-planned multi-pronged strike. At 8:00 a.m. the following morning, Ananya's explosive documentary and investigative report hit national news networks and front pages simultaneously. The report laid bare 30 years of Thakur Vikram Singh's reign of terror, exposing illegal land grabbing, the poisoning of the valley's groundwater, bribery of state officials, and the systematic murder of local activists, complete with bank statements and audio recordings provided by Karan. Simultaneously, Karan's legal team filed an emergency petition with the High Court and international financial regulators, citing massive fraud and unauthorized siphoning of corporate reserves. The courts froze every single domestic and international bank account associated with Singcoal and Power. By midday, total catastrophe struck. Singcoal's stock tanked on the stock exchange, plunging 90% in a matter of hours as panicked investor shares swarms of angry creditors, unpaid contractors, and federal fraud investigators descended upon the Singh estate. Inside the mansion, total chaos erupted. Alarms rang out, staff fled, and security guards abandoned their posts as federal seizure notices were slapped onto the iron gates. Ranveer locked himself in his master office, sweating profusely. His hands shaking so violently he could barely hold his phone. He dialed Karan's personal number over and over again. Ranveer, screaming hysterically into the receiver, Karan, pick up the damn phone. Everything is collapsing. The government froze the accounts. Where is the deal money? Where are you? All Ranveer heard on the other end was a cold, monotonous automated tone. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. Ranveer dropped the phone, the glass shattering on the floor. The terrifying truth began to settle into his bones like liquid ice. There was no deal. There was no partner. Karan Raichand hadn't come to save him. He had come to execute him. Ashes to ashes, extended version cornered, broke and facing a life sentence in a federal prison, Ranveer snapped. As sirens wailed in the distance near the estate gates, Ranveer tore through his office drawers, pulling out a heavy loaded, .45 caliber revolver. He didn't care about the police or the corporate fraud anymore. The humiliation, the total annihilation of his life's work, and the betrayal by the man he trusted burned inside him like poison. He picked up a piece of burned paper from a file Karan had dropped days ago, an old land survey of the valley, with a specific set of coordinates marked in red ink. Ranveer realized where Karan Raichand was waiting for him. It was a stormy, moonless night. Lightning flashed across the ink-black sky, illuminating the ruins of the sugarcane fields on the outskirts of the valley, the exact grounds where the Devraj mansion had stood 15 years ago. Rain lashed mercilessly against the charred stone foundations that were now overgrown with wild vines and weeds. Ranveer arrived in his roaring black SUV, crashing straight through the rusted perimeter fence. He stepped out into the mud, his hair soaked, holding the revolver in his trembling right hand. His remaining 3 heavily armed bodyguards stepped out behind him, weapons drawn. Ranveer, screaming over the roar of thunder, his voice hysterical, Raichand, show yourself, you bastard! You ruined my family, you stole my life! Where are you? From the shadows of the central stone archway, the exact spot where Devraj's front door used to be, a tall figure stepped out into the rain. Karan wore a long black trench coat. He didn't carry a gun. He stood calmly amidst the storm, looking at Ranveer with eyes that held the coldness of a graveyard. Karan, voice slicing through the thunder, you came, Ranveer, Just like your father came 15 years ago, with guns and cowards behind you. Ranveer, rising the revolver, aiming straight at Karan's chest. Who the hell are you? Who paid you to destroy me? Tell me before I blow your brains out into the mud. Karan reached slowly into his inner coat pocket. Ranveer's bodyguards tensed, but Karan pulled out only a small object, a silver pocket watch. Its glass cracked and its metal casing blackened and melted by intense heat. Karan tossed it through the rain. It landed in the mud right at Ranveer's feet. Ranveer stared down at the watch. A sudden, cold shiver ran down his spine. He recognized the crest engraved on the melted silver. It belonged to Magistrate Devraj. Karan, stepping closer, his voice echoing with absolute authority, "Look closely, Ranveer. 15 years ago, on this exact spot. You stood beside your father and laughed while my mother and father burned alive inside this house. You thought the ash blew away in the wind. You thought power made you gods. But ash doesn't die, it waits." Ranveer's eyes bulged in utter horror. The blood drained completely from his face as the ghost of his past materialized before him. Ranveer, stammering, stepping back into the mud. No, that's impossible. Kabir, Devraj's boy. You died in the fire! We searched the woods, you were dead! A razor, sharp, terrifying smile appearing on his face. Kabir died in that fire, Ranveer. The boy who cried for his parents is gone. I am the fire that came back to consume you. The final confrontation extended version. Before Ranveer's panicked bodyguards could raise their rifles, dark shadows moved swiftly through the rain-soaked forest surrounding the ruins. Raghu led Karan's elite security team, emerging with silent, lethal efficiency. Within seconds, a series of muffled shots rang out. The bodyguards were disarmed and forced to their knees, their weapons kicked into the mud. Ranveer was left completely alone. Hysterical, blinded by rain and pure terror, he raised his revolver with trembling hands and pulled the trigger 3 times. Sk. The gun only clicked uselessly. The firing pin struck empty chambers. Karan's team had compromised Ranveer's vehicle and weapons hours before he even left his estate. Karan didn't even flinch. He closed the distance between them in 2 powerful strides. Before Ranveer could drop the gun and run, Karan grabbed him by the throat, his grip like a steel vise, lifting Ranveer off his feet and slamming him brutally against the charred stone pillar of the old mansion. Ranveer's gasping for air, choking, "Please, Kabir. Have mercy. It was my father. Vikram made me do it. I was just a kid. Kabir," his voice dropping to a terrifying, deadly whisper. "My father begged for mercy that night, Ranveer. Not for himself, but for my mother and the poor farmers of this valley. You stood right here and laughed while they burned. Did you give them mercy?" Kabir dragged Ranveer across the muddy courtyard, forcing him to look at the crumbling fireplace where Devraj and his wife had spent their last moments. "Kabir, look at it! Today your multi-billion-dollar empire is completely bankrupt. Your name is dragged through the dirt on national television. And as we speak, your father is lying in a hospital bed, watching his entire life's work vanish before his dying eyes. You have nothing, ours," sobbing hysterically, clutching Kabir's arms. "Just kill me then! Shoot me! End it!" Kabir, throwing Ranveer down into the mud like trash. "Death is too easy, Ranveer. Death is a mercy. You are going to live in a cold, dark cell, stripped of your wealth, your power, and your identity. Every single day for the rest of your life, you will wake up and remember that the boy you tried to burn took everything from you." Red and blue police lights suddenly flashed through the torrential rain as a convoy of federal vehicles tore through the iron gates. Sirens wailed, piercing the night air. Ananya stepped out of the lead police cruiser alongside federal marshals holding official arrest warrants for corporate fraud, murder, arson, and human rights violations. Federal agents moved in instantly, pinning Ranveer to the muddy ground and forcing his arms behind his back. The heavy click of steel handcuffs echoed loudly over the sound of the falling rain. Ranveer screamed like a madman, thrashing in the mud as he was dragged toward the police van. His eyes locked onto Kabir in utter despair. Kabir stood tall amidst the ruins of his childhood home, watching his enemy dragged away into the dark. The 15-year storm inside his soul was finally beginning to clear. The renewal extended version. 3 months later, the morning sun rose bright, warm, and golden over the northern valley. The heavy black clouds that had hung over the land for years were gone, replaced by a soft, fresh breeze swaying through the lush sugarcane fields. The legal storm had finally settled. Through a historic high court ruling, the seized billion-dollar assets of Singh coal and power were officially restructured into a public welfare trust managed under Kabir's direction. The thousands of acres of land that Thakur Vikram Singh had illegally stolen from poor village families were formally returned to their original owners. Construction had already begun on a state-of-the-art charitable hospital and agricultural research center built on the clean perimeter of the valley, named the Devraj Foundation. Thakur Vikram Singh had passed away in custody weeks prior, his heart giving out after witnessing the total liquidation of his legacy. Ranveer was serving a 30-year sentence in a maximum security federal prison, stripped of his luxury, his money, and his freedom. Kabir stood atop the highest grassy hill overlooking the valley, wearing a simple linen shirt. He was no longer carrying the crushing weight of Karan Raichand, nor was he hiding behind a high-profile corporate facade. For the first time in 15 years, he was simply Kabir. A soft rustle of dry leaves sounded behind him. Ananya walked up the hill, holding a freshly printed hardback book, her published exposé on the fall of the Singh Empire, which was already topping best-seller lists. Ananya, standing beside him, looking out at the peaceful green fields. The court signed the final transfer deeds this morning. Every single farming family in the valley officially has their land back, Kabir. It's completely over. Kabir, taking a deep, quiet breath, feeling the warmth of the sun on his face. It isn't over, Ananya. It's just beginning. Destruction is easy. Rebuilding what was broken is where the real work lies. Ananya smiling softly. The fire that burned inside you for 15 years is finally out. What happens to Kabir now? Kabir's unclenching his fist, looking down at his empty palm, no longer holding ash. The fire consumed the past and paid the debts. Now, it's time to live for the future. He turned toward the path leading down into the village, where the church bells were ringing and children were playing safely in the streets. With a calm heart and clear eyes, Kabir walked down the hill into the light, leaving the ashes behind forever. The end.